On and we are, come on, OBS. We're recording on Zoom and recording on OBS on Friday, October 3rd, 2025 at 9:02 a.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Ian Burlingame. You guys can go to the description. You can follow his Twitter, his YouTube, his, I believe, Substack, his and his books and all that good shit. And uh wanted to talk about kind of the big Pentagon meeting. But before we get on that, you're asking about YouTube, and for all future listeners, it's October 2025. I was banned in August 2021 at episode 545. And and I got unbanned at episode almost exactly 1845. So almost exactly 1300 episodes. Now, even even with standard definition, it still takes, I don't know, 5 minutes to upload each one. And then there's 1300 to do. And there's a point to what I'm saying. And the thumbnails, YouTube, I guess, have changed it to where thumbnails can be no bigger than 2 MB. All my thumbnails are like 8 because they're high res. So got to go through and resize all of them. The point is I'm doing all this, and there are people on YouTube who I get it. I get it like philosophically, where they're like, oh, I thought this was a new whatever bald one show. It's not though. Tommy, you should. I get it. Totally get it. When I go and find episodes of podcasts, sometimes I'm like, wait, when was this? That being said, there's so many fucking episodes to do. And this is why I don't have that much, care. I open every show with a verbal reading of the of the year, month, day, hour, minute, time zone, and on the bottom right-hand side of the screen on Zoom is is year, month, day, hour, minute, second. So, not that you asked about any of this, but just venting. People are like, "This is so." Add the date and time. I'm like, dude, just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. It's so that's kind of my qualm. Is like I'm back on YouTube. I'm psyched to upload it, and you just have people bitching about it. But I suppose that's also on me for letting it get to me. Maybe I just shouldn't fucking look at it. So to answer your question, how's YouTube going? It's go it, it's going good. The
Awesome.
entire time I was on YouTube, I think it got 30,000 watch hours. In the last week, it's almost doubled that. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's yeah, and people are saying they're getting it and they're recommended, which never used to happen. So
Awesome. Awesome.
answer your question, on the up and up. Not holding my breath though. It is YouTube. So I'm gonna shut the fuck up because that has truly nothing to do with what we're talking about. But the big
Well,
meeting
it
is
is though.
yeah,
The world's changing, right?
sure, yeah, you could say
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But what
And
was the thing you actually wanted to talk about other than telling people to shut the fuck up?
well,
Which
that's
I do
prime.
like this early in the morning, by the way. It's the
Sometimes
right attitude.
yeah. So I try not to even get because some of them I'm just like maybe this is a first time listener. That's not the best first impression. So I just won't reply. I can't help myself when somebody comes in and they're just dictating. They're like, this young man needs to sit up straight. He's swearing way too
Oh,
much.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah, yeah.
episodes, they're not clean and cropped. And they're like, and I'm not sure I'm going to watch this. And I'm like, it's free media, you fucking Paris. Those people have got to
Yeah.
go. Um,
Yeah.
but the Pentagon meeting, all the fucking generals and whatever going there, and it's Hegseth gave him a. I tend to think that's not what the purpose was. That it could literally be an email. But yesterday, and I sent it to you, and I sent it to a couple other, I sent it to Dale, I sent it to Clay, and I specifically sent it to Joe Tedai and Dale Comstock because they were both in Ground Branch, and about basically the use of irregular warfare or cleared for it domestically, and something about it's not international, it's against the cartels and a bunch of legal precedents I don't understand. But I thought it was interesting is, you said it was significant. Clay said kind of like 50-50. And Ted I did, and Ted I for his sake, he said that, by the way, that's just my opinion. That's my take, not fact, obviously. But what he said is he gives the DoD a broader charter and mandate to work under Title 50. And that is important because that's what CIA ground branch is, and that's what Joe Tedai was in, and that's what Dale was in, and which is it's a whole different ball game than say DevGru or Delta or Tier 1, Tier 2, or whatever. Um, Primarily about it being tertia optio. It's the, yeah, we're not doing this. Wink. That to me. is significant. But I've now ear raped you for the first 5 minutes, so I'm going to just go full, like I ate an edible and you go nonverbal. You just stare, so I'm just gonna go nonverbal now and hand it over to you.
Yeah, well, Title 10 guys, which is U.S. Army, non-National Guard. Forgive me, I still have this infection in my left cranial nerve, so
You're,
half my face is slipping.
you're good. My
It's good
nose
to
is
know that it wasn't
whistling.
a stroke, though, right? It's like, woo, it's
Yeah,
just an infection. Yeah.
I was being like an overbearing mom last week. I was like, "Are you
Yeah.
awake? Are you alive? Are you?" I was just like, I just turned into
Appreciate it.
I just turned into a fat Jewish nurse. I was like, are you okay?"
You're
Um,
still that doctor down underneath.
yeah, we're good.
Yeah. So, just for quick clarification, Title 32 is National Guard, Title 10 is active military, and Title 50 is CIA, intelligence. Those all have different authorities. Some can work on U.S. ground, some can't. Posse comitatus. Anyways, I won't go into all the boring stuff. People can look it up. But given different con plans, given different authorities, they all work on U.S. soil in one form or fashion or another,
Yeah,
right? Um, Generally, there still has to be coordination through a task force that is ostensibly still under law enforcement, whether that's federal law enforcement or state or municipal, but usually it's a state and federal level task force to which U.S. military, special operations or intelligence assets are assigned. Um, for the most part, this has been around the cartels because of the transnational nature of the cartels. But I've been calling this out for as long as you and I have known each other, right? The Praetorian problems. Who are the Praetorians? The Praetorians are the bankers and the people behind the cartels. The cartels are just the cartels are the off the books CIA.
yeah,
It's just literally what they are. I mean, look at Oliver North in the 80s when I was in high school. I remember him, I had to do a paper on him on the Iran Contra thing where they were moving cocaine out of Colombia and buying guns and for Iran or whatever, somewhere the Contras and, yada yada. And Ollie North got up and said, Senator, I do not recall, I think 100 times. And Reagan tried to put a stop to all that and they shot him, right? In broad daylight. So, I think you and I have talked this before, but I suspect that the Kennedy assassination set something in motion and we're now getting to it. And what is that? That's the undoing of the CIA. It's the
and
undoing of the intelligence, this Praetorian regime, this mob state government.
to interrupt, it's I think we all tend to accept, we go, yeah, something was set in motion. It was the takeover over of the Republic. We're not saying just that, although that is one thing that was set in motion
Hmm.
or was in motion, and that was just momentum. But the idea of a sort of a counter to it, a resistance to it, that has just kept their head down for 60 years because they had to.
Well, I think part of it is keeping the head down, but the other part of it is taking 60 years to get into a position in a place where you can remove this Praetorian system.
I kind of mean the same when I say that. I mean,
I
your
got you.
sources are low. Don't ask the way to the king's cauldrons. Just
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to get prepared for the fight you're going to fight. And then you have to draw out this clever, hidden, behind the scenes enemy to where everybody can see them. And you have to, at least, since they're not, but you have to at least do everything within the confines of the Constitution and the law, the actual law, not bullshit, and one of the things that's had to happen is this restoration of constitutionality in the federal courts, which has been happening under this current administration at extraordinary pace. And then you have to be able to fire a bunch of people because this mob state is embedded in everything, right? It's a parasite, kind of like this son of a bitch in my fucking cheek right now,
all good.
right? Um, who knew horse medicines were so awesome? They've helped a lot. Ivermectin has
Oh,
helped
really?
immensely. Yeah, this could
Fuck
have gone
yeah.
on months, and it's in about a week or so. It's
Fuck yeah.
mostly gotten rid of it. It's mostly just localized down here now, a little bit. But, point being is that, you know, people people look at and keep hearing, most of the people who are running their mouth talking about things, some of them fairly knowledgeable. So I don't mean to, belittle them, but most people are talking about the great game, right? It's the managerial class's fuckery. And it's immense and it's vast and it's all these different layers. But above that is the sport of kings. It's like the eternal war that I wrote about versus the infinite game. The infinite game is a sport of kings. It's how do we keep this all going? How do we keep it from crashing? How do we keep them from crashing it? But how do we play this in such a way that we keep the parasitism to a level that's at least survivable, if not, hey, we can actually thrive for a little while, right? All of it, the Praetorian problem is a very real problem. It goes back to Rome. That's why labeled the Praetorian problem. It's very well known. It's happened in other courts. It's happened in other states. It's just, you know, it's what happens over time. The resentfuls rise to the top, all these systems, and they corrupt everything. And removing them nearly kills you. And in many cases, the attempt to remove them ends the kingdom, principality, or state. And our princes, our oligarchs, and some of the managerial class are doing absolutely everything they can now. They are moving. They have the wealth. They have the technologies now. They have enough awareness amongst the people for the people to at least recognize that something positive is happening and that some people need to be taken down. And there's a cry for it, right? There's we're half a step from pitchforks and torches in the night, right? Like people right now, some of these horrendous rapes and of children and other things, people are actually going to the jails and demanding the person be released to be, hung, drawn, and quartered. We're getting to that place, right? We're right there. So, they tried to kill Trump. They killed Charlie Kirk as a way to let, that was a willingness to demonstrate how
That
far
was
they'll go.
that's what you texted me, and
Yeah.
which I thought was significant is that was a demonstration of how far
It was a demonstration of yeah.
how far we will go.
Yeah, that's the Praetorians saying we will kill yours, and there's very little you can do about it. And we'll do it publicly, and we'll burn some of our low level, Marxist throwaways. Where we're really getting to at some point here, and somebody posted something yesterday about here's your enemy, and I was like, if you think the Antifas are the actual enemy, you are an idiot. Those are the throwaways. That's the disposables. Who's really behind this, and I'll just say it straight up, is the Azovs, who now have 3 years of modern combat experience and who have been working with leading jihadis and cartel members, which has been in the press and been out in the public. They've been leading them in combat for 3 years. They're extraordinarily well funded.
That's one thing. Sorry to interrupt. That's one thing I said in 2022. I was like, it just kind of feels like we're funding the Mujahideen, and then it becomes Al Qaeda, and we don't know how it happens. And so far as to say, we might even champion the Mujahideen, freedom fighters on the front page of the New York Times. What's the modern thing today? It's Slava Ukraini, and all of a sudden, $1 trillion of weapons and a couple years or maybe decades. It seems now like it's a couple years. They're gonna arise. There will probably be a name change in the public atmosphere by our government to make it look like something different, or they'll just call it the Azovs, and we're all gonna go, well, how did they get all those weapons? And it's
Well, didn't Zelensky himself several times say that only about 10% of the money and stuff's getting to the Ukraine?
yeah.
And we're all like, well, they're stealing the weapons. No, that's not what's showing up in the weapons markets, by the way. So where's all that going? right? So if I was going to mount if I knew civil war was coming and I knew some very capable people were going to finally remove me, do you think there isn't shit like that we wouldn't be done? And oh, by the way, look at the history of the Azovs. These are Banderites. They've worked directly with the CIA as the wet works, as this very role for the CIA since the 1940s. Unbroken, right? Direct continuity. And with all the Ukrainian
Direct continuity
diaspora,
from what, OSS or Azov's?
the Azovs were the Banderites. After World War II, the Banderites worked directly with the CIA, stay behind in Eastern Europe to fight against the Soviets.
Got it.
Right? It's an Operation
Gladio.
Gladio and all that other stuff. That was the Banderites.
All
That
right.
was the Ukrainians. And people are like, well, they're Ukrainian. Why would they do? Well, these are the Western Ukrainians. They don't consider themselves Slavs. And all the Slavs to them are Russians. So they don't mind killing 2 million of their, Ukrainian people because to them, that's not their own people. Right? But now with the tens of millions, 25 million or so Ukrainians that diaspora around the world, Azovs are embedded everywhere, right? So, yeah, the Antifas and the soys and all of this, and don't underestimate them either, because crazies can do some crazy. They can out of 30 crazies, one can get a lucky shot off, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're further enhanced and supported and given intel and weapons and other things from behind the scenes, because that's what you do first, right? And these fascists pushed, you burn the communists and Marxists first. So we need to be very, you know, back to the point, and then I'll let you guide the conversation where you want it to go next. But the articulation of the authorities, the reissuing of 3000.2, et cetera. Um, I didn't see, and I didn't, dig too deep, of course, but I've seen these authorities and other things before because of the work I did. Um, what I am seeing in concert with the officers and senior enlisted all being brought back, one, what does that demonstrate? Our military command is way over bloated. We had 12 million people under arms in World War II, and we only had seven four-star or five-star generals ran it all, right? We have something like 100 plus four stars right now. Um, Give me a second. But
Yeah, you're good.
what it looked like to me is just so the reissuance of the documents is just a reminding everybody of the legality of the domestic actions that they're doing. And then the um, and primarily that's a reminder to, attorney generals and states that are fighting, like Oregonians and really California, because once we get there, it's going to be, I don't know, that one might start the hot shooting. Um, and then timing that with the military officers, probably they got another brief as well, which was all of that stuff too, and an articulation that if any of them continue with treasonous activities, which some of them have been engaged in, wittingly or unwittingly, or if any of them act to participate with the Europeans or the British to launch World War III and draw the United States into World War III, that they would be removed immediately, a la MacArthur, right? And that the fight is here, it's in the Western Hemisphere, and we all need to orient to it. And I almost guarantee you they got all those authorities and all that legal language. That's probably who that was prepared for, was senior leadership. So that anybody say, well, we can't act on U.S. soil, or we can't this, or we can't that. It's like, yeah, sorry, here's all the legalities of how and why. And so when we give you an order, you're going to execute that order. It is a lawful order.
It it was kind of like a digital nationwide version of the military installation deadly force authorized sign. That's
Yeah.
kind of, it's not
Yeah.
that it was new. It's just that as you're walking up to, I don't know, Groom Lake, you see it and you're like, up in like New England where, all my extended family is, all you'll be in the woods and you'll see like, posted the sign. You go,
Yeah,
okay, that's
yeah.
different. And hopefully they're probably not going to kill you. They probably know my dad. Like they won't. This is, I would imagine you're walking up to Groom Lake and you go, that says deadly force authorized. Just, it's just out there. You go, it makes you think twice. This seems less of a make you think twice and more of like a reminder. That's what I feel like it is. And
Well, and it's also a notice to all of, again, city, county, state bad actors who would try and throw lawsuits, and courts and judges that would try and throw lawsuits out there, and attorneys like the ACLU and others that would try and throw all these frivolous cases. It's like, okay, we're going to tell you right up front what all the legal authorities are, what the law is, what the codes are, what we're going to be operating under, so we can just cut through all this crap.
and that's not to play on our text, but that's not insignificant.
No.
That is not it, right? It's just back to Trump's first turn, it'd be like, oh, the leftist mayor, and they're like, yeah, and we're gonna resist Trump, and it just kind of seemed a bunch of like bickering and shit. This does not seem like that. And I mean, for all Trump's flaws, he has many, and I wish he would do more, and blah blah blah, the human condition. He I like what he's doing with ICE this administration, just as like an example, versus the first administration. Is it seems like he doesn't give a fuck about like, oh, they're gonna scream Nazi fascist. The first time it was like, oh, well, I don't want to be called that. Versus now, we've gone so far that it's like I just don't care. Yeah, I don't care. Roll it out.
I
It's
don't
the law.
know. I don't know that that's the case. I think the case is, so here's what I suspect, and it's only a suspicion, okay? I suspect they were ready, almost ready in 2020. So
To do what they're doing now.
Sicario 2 was a warning. And what's happening now, what's about to happen now, might or might not have been planned for February 2020. And might or might not be the real reason COVID was launched and the election was stolen to prevent what's coming, this hard removal. And the responsibles on their side, unfortunately or fortunately, weren't as prepared as they thought they were. One, they didn't foresee that they had had this COVID thing sitting on the shelf there that they were ready to launch. And they didn't see how extensive they were going to go, right, on stealing the election at every level. And they didn't at the time have the full faith and support of enough of the high level managerial class to participate. Now they do because they've seen everything that's happened under Biden, not under Biden, with, presidency at Bernie's. You familiar with that movie,
It,
Weekend at Bernie's?
yeah.
I call that the presidency at Bernie's, right?
So much so that and I always hate 5D chess,
Uh,
but so much so you almost wonder if it was a mixture of the two. They were surprised about COVID and the theft of the election. I firmly believe a bunch of generals went to Trump because Trump was giving like press conferences around Christmas 2020, if you
uh,
remember, where he wasn't just saying it was stolen. He would be like at 3:13 a.m.,
yeah, yeah,
119,214
yeah.
votes. So I looked at that and I was like, they have it. I think probably somewhere there's a bunch of generals that are like, we're pivoting, but if you do this right now, the entire thing's gonna explode.
It's not even them. It's not the generals. What it was
Whoever,
is the
whoever,
courts. What it
whoever.
was is the courts, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the vice president, a whole bunch, a whole bunch of high level managerial class said, "Yeah, we won't back you in this." Why? Because they didn't want to be the ones whose
Kick it
name
off.
was on civil war. So
Yeah.
they didn't care if the country got destroyed, or they didn't care what came next. They're just fucking cowards.
Yeah.
And it's a whole lot of people. It's not just the names that we think, but a vast number of cowards. And so, okay, at a certain point, you realized in January that There wasn't going to be the managerial class supports necessary to make the movement that had to be made. Okay, we're going to step aside, but we're going to draw all this out into the open, and we're going to collect intelligence, and we're going to have conversations with people, high level managerial class people, and say, we know what you did, like that, right? Right down to the very number of and the minute, right? We know what you did. You're out of the game, right? Or we're coming after you, or we're going to legally exercise, what we need to do in the courts. And on the other side, you get enough destruction in 4 years to where higher level managerial, the higher level managerial class guys, mostly guys who were sitting on the fence because they just didn't want to be in a civil war because they're close to retirement. Worst motherfuckers in the history of the world are the ones close to retirement, right? But you get enough for them to see as much destruction in 4 years and can see the progress of that, and they're like, okay. And they're either going to commit or they're going to retire, right? They'll just get out and retire. What I do expect to see here soon, over the next year or so, is a whole bunch of retirements. It'll be quiet. It'll be kept quiet. It'll just be done. And, you know, that was really Trump rambled that whole conversation in front of all the senior staff. And I was wondering about that, right? I was wondering about it because Hegseth's right on, right on. And then Trump comes out and he rambles around. I realize it's because Trump came out to say one thing. He came out to say one thing and he said it early on. And you know what it was? He said, everybody's free to do what they want. Everybody here is free to do what they want. You can get up and walk out. It'll cost you your rank and your career and your future.
Hmm.
That's what he came out to say. Everybody's free in America. You're free to do what you want to do. You're free to support the other side, but it's going to cost you. No more of this sliding through, no more of getting a wink wink, no more looking the other way. Everything else was just, okay, I got some time to fill.
And also back to 2020, 2021. I don't think it was part of, you know, I don't think it was drawn up to be like, and then we'll let them steal the elect. I don't go that far. That's way too many moving
No, no, no,
pieces.
no.
But
Yeah, no, no.
what I think it was is it's probably, I mean, let's postulate this and say this, whatever this group is, started in 1963. Well, 2020 is
60
what,
years almost.
50
Almost
57
60 years.
50, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
57
yeah.
years. They might be going, they're looking at it, they're going, it's growing it's like I look at the podcast, I'm like, it's growing every month. This is a hiccup. They might look at that and be like, yeah, let's not fuck 57 years. Let's,
A
we
preparation.
didn't expect this. How do
Yes.
we pivot? How do we capitalize on it? Honestly, it was its own psyop. You just
Very good.
saw how fucking crazy they were. You saw what
Very
they were willing to
good.
censor. You saw what they were willing to do, to the point where all of a sudden it's like now you got a lot of people that are like openly asking. They're like, I hope Trump and them just do this shit. And it's like, wow, that's a lot less convincing and a lot more asking.
If the enemy hadn't launched COVID, we wouldn't have half the people calling for this today.
Oh, a
Maybe not
quarter,
even
a
half,
quarter.
right? So you're spot on. You said something about a game you used to play where you just launch an aircraft over enemy territory.
I was gonna say it earlier, and I wasn't sure if I had said that to you before.
Yeah.
Nuclear option, and it's
Yeah.
a long 3 hour game, and you escalate. You get cruise missiles to tacticals to strategic to big. You start unlocking this stuff, and the war gets crazier and crazier. You got to take out each other's factories. But sometimes what you do is very early, instead of expending one of your B-2 bombers, you'd get in a fighter jet, no weaponry, quarter tank of fuel, nothing, lightweight, thrust to weight ratio max, full throttle, sonic boom. You're not trying to hide shit. You're just carving through the valley at like an altitude of I don't know, 100 feet. And then as you get close to their main base, you've already been pinging things the entire way. Then you bank straight up to where all of their enemies can see you. And the idea is like you're not gonna survive. So early on, you start tracking the anti the 40 mil AA guns
Yeah,
and
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
And then once you get to like their kind of main base, you just go straight up and you literally just the pings on the map go and you see, medium range SAM sites, long range SAM sites, the hyper long range, the beyond the horizon ones. And if there are any aircraft in the area, even on the runway, they'll start pinging you, which lights up the runways. That guy's fucked. There's no getting out of it. You have now drawn out their entire map, and you can now piecemeal just
That's
and
what
it takes
the whole,
hours. And if you don't know the game, you'd
yeah.
be like, what was the point of that? Anyone that's played the game and knows it can go 12 hours, they'll go, this one sacrifice is going to make the match only last 90 minutes.
So that's what the whole president at Biden's was.
Mm.
Presidency at Bernie's was doing that on the political and legal scene, and then the oligarch, high net worth managerial scene. Since getting into office, they've been doing the same thing with the World War III infrastructure, the British World War III, European World War III infrastructure, which is again the Azovs and the CIA and the cartels and everybody else. And again, not all of them. There's some good guys and there's factions, et cetera. But for the most part, all the operational guys and all the guys that have basically been off the books for decades or, a couple of generations now. Um, the Devil's Legions, as I call them. But that's what's been happening. He'd been probing, poking, right, to see where's this World War III assets at in Europe, Eastern Europe, in the Middle East, Southeast Asia. Why? Same thing. Draw them out in the open, right? Israel would take another 40 years to be able to do another strike like they did on Iran.
Natanz. Was it Natanz? No,
And they
that was
pro
stuck. That was Stuxnet.
Yeah, Stuxnet.
But,
No, no, this
but
was, with
yeah, yeah, yeah.
targeted strikes on, IRGC, et cetera. Because it took them at least 20 years to put all that human infrastructure in place, et cetera. So that's exactly what's happening. Okay, well, same things have been happening with the cartels using ICE. Cartels here in the US, right? And it started with that one in LA, which was what? Well, that was actually a money laundering operation, the one that started the riots. And then what do? Well, you draw out government and oh, okay. So that person does work for the cartels, mayor of, for the CIA, actually. Look at her background, right? USAID background, right? But how many governors, how many mayors, how many sheriffs in the United States are owned and paid for by the cartels? It's a lot more people think of. What about politicians? What about city council members? What about small and regional bankers? Right? This goes back over a century. What we have to look at in the United States, like not right now, is like New York City and Chicago during Prohibition, because that's what we have. That's the extent of what we have, just times 10, because we're vastly bigger population now and vastly more dangerous. Right? So you got to probe them, you got to draw them out. That's what they're doing with ICE right now. Right? World War III stuff's been highlighted and is being taken off the table by us and other people, primarily by Russia and China and Iran. And now, you know, the thing that you sent me yesterday morning, we're telling all of these owned assets, all of these government legal, and because there's law firms and everything else involved, here's all the legal structure and language. We have all the authorities necessary. And yes, if it's necessary, we can use the U.S. military in full force here in the United States. And actually, by the way, I looked it up a few weeks ago, actually, and there are um, means and methods by which the posse comitatus, which is non-use of Title 10 forces on U.S. soil, can be set aside.
Well, foreign and domestic. I mean,
Foreign and domestic. I swore an oath to
yeah.
all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and regardless of laws and precedents and whether it's right or wrong or whatever, just abstractly, I've always assumed like they would deploy the military domestically if shit ever got bad. Like I'm like I don't know, I just always assumed
But
at some point they'd be like, yeah, fuck it.
but you have to have the military loyal, and that's
Sure,
what they've
sure.
been working on since, actually since the Bushes, by the way. This goes back before Obama. I know everything's getting tried. I mean this somewhat snide, as a snide statement, but not. It's interesting how all this is being dumped on the one black president.
It's not
It's
funny.
as if he was the only bad guy
He
that we've
wasn't great,
had.
but I mean, yeah, fuck. I'll throw him a bone. Yeah, he's not the soul. Somebody said
No,
Donald Trump is the character at the end of a horror movie. Okay, but you have to understand that a lot of other guys got you in a horror movie. Like,
yes,
so yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
yeah, no,
it's like it's just
it's not all Obama, and that's where you do kind of have to call
it's like
some conservatives. You're like, hey man, like I hate this. I hate the racist dog whistle. But hey, dude, you're kind of being a fucking racist, right? Like
right,
he's not great either. But Bush is a war criminal. You know, it's like I'm not
both
saying you don't
of
have to
them, and
exactly,
Clinton.
and Cheney, and like it's yeah. So it's like I don't like
Yeah.
them either.
So
But I mean, come on.
yeah, it's like it's. But you know what I think? Quite honestly, I think part of the reason they're doing that is just to try and prove that racism is
Sure.
real and that everybody's racist, and it's like so. Yeah, so I suspect more and more I'm seeing that we're getting to a very real fight, and all the groundwork's being laid. I still hear all these talking heads talking stuff, and it's like people managerial, they're still talking managerial class stuff. It's like, bro, Sport of Kings up here has changed fundamentally. I mean, we're in a whole different world now, and you're still talking shit from 2 years ago. You can't even talk shit from 6 months ago. In fact, you can't even talk it 3 months ago because shit's changed that much right now. That's the thing that concerns me. The other thing that concerns me a lot is a whole lot of people running their fucking mouth. They ain't never done nothing but read a book or talk. And they're running their mouth against guys that are in the game, guys that are, known and putting targets on people's backs, wittingly or unwittingly. And that's the other thing in these kinds of transition times. I was starting to write a piece this morning before I got your message. But we're going to see the amplification of a whole lot of voices, some of which we already know, right? And we're going to see the tuning out of moderate voices, experienced voices that are saying, no, that's not actually what's going on. Or you're going to see it. This is what happens right before shit goes hot. And you're going to see a whole number of little shitbags shouldn't be running their mouth about people, particularly in these kinds of times, because they're painting a target on them. And these ain't normal times. You're going to see a whole bunch of nonsense talkers talk well read. They got a good memory, and they're going to be voices that get promoted. Why? Because it doesn't matter if anybody listens to them. They're just spouting nonsense they don't fucking understand. Problem is, they're going to be they're painting targets. It's already happening. It's not like I haven't got death threats, and then some idiot last week fucking, and then when he gets a chance to take a deeper look, because I didn't attack him. I just said, hey, you might want to take a broader look, cherry pick some quotes from some things I've done over 25 years, and then locks down comments. Like, okay, motherfucker, this ain't normal times. You paint a target on somebody's back who's in the game and shit goes bad and it's connected to you in any way. Don't think there isn't going to be ramifications, right? That's the other thing in these kinds of times. Talkers need to be careful. When we're in normal-ish kinds of times, talking can say shit and it's not really a threat and okay. But in times when people are getting killed on live fucking TV, you might want to watch what the fuck you run your mouth about, right? I know people in the game. I know guys I know personally, or maybe saying shit they shouldn't say because of a paycheck. I'm never going to call them out. You'll never get their fucking name from me. You torture the living fuck out of me, you'll never get the name. Well, torture does work. Just hate to say that, but you delay long enough, right? But the point being is you'll never, almost never, unless it's really imminent threat or somebody's really put themselves out there, you're never going to hear me using somebody's name. It's not how you do, in times when shit's really dangerous, you don't fucking talk that way, especially if you don't really know the person you're talking about,
I mean,
right?
that's my modus operandi with the fucking podcast and not in the military. It's one of that's why I always tell everyone like if because I have so many guests on, a lot of guests don't like other guests. And I always tell them
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
You can't say it on the show because they're not
yeah,
present. In the same way, I will tell them you can't talk about Bob if they're not present.
yeah, yeah.
That's just like not based on threats or whatnot. That's just me going, it kind of seems like a bitch move to do that, so I don't do it.
Well, that's the thing,
I
right?
just look at it just that. I'm like, yeah, don't be a pussy. What are you fucking
We've
talking
been in
about?
this effeminate fucking world for too long. People don't
Yeah,
remember what it means to be a man. Man doesn't run his fucking mouth about another man. It's like Clay said in that video here recently. It's like if McPhee wanted to show up, kick his ass for calling him out about Tim Kennedy. Well, okay. You know, man's got to do what, man's got to take his beating when he takes it. But that's two men, right? That's two public facing men having a conversation between each other. Just so happens to be public because the other guy's also one of our community and he's also public,
sure.
right? But it's like I wrote about yesterday, right? It's not going to come at you unless you really are a danger, right? Unless you're intentionally painting a target. But what's happening these times right now, there's another selection going on behind the scenes. It's mostly unspoken, but it's the community of people who can secure in almost any kind of situation, making determinations about who and what gets secured. Should it go to, you know, primary, alternate, contingency, or
What do you
emergency?
what say that again? I'm not following. Secure what?
So there's another selection going on, right? There's
Mm,
another dialogue going on behind the scenes in these times. It always happens this way. And it's a conversation mostly sotto voce, subtle, but it's, hey, in primary, alternate, contingency, emergency planning, right? When you're doing your PACE plan, um, it would stay within primary, most dangerous, most probable courses of action. Here's who and what we can secure. In the alternate, most probable, most dangerous courses of action. Here's what we can, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole lot of people right now running their mouths about things that don't realize that by doing that, they're getting outside that security bubble. They're getting identified as somebody who's a threat
mm,
because they run their mouth and they don't know what the hell they're talking about, or they're painting targets on people's backs. And so it's not like, okay, we're going to come after you. It's like, no, it's just if somebody is coming after you, nobody's going to come for you.
mm. To loosely pull it back to, I guess, the Pentagon meeting and whatever.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause I don't
Yeah.
even know what it was called. I don't know, the irregular, that whole just thing, the Pentagon and then that irregular warfare tweet or whatever. Um, it also comes down to, does Trump have the balls to use it? And I, I go I go back and forth that, sometimes I think he does, sometimes I think he doesn't. Sometimes I think that maybe it's just his ego where he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go down as the president that fucked all these guys. I don't know, dude. I guess by the fact that it's happening is the proof in the pudding. Now, granted, he still has to do it, but I guess the fact that it's
So,
happening at all is kind of proof that like he kind of has the balls to do it. Not that not that you have a
yeah.
line with
So,
Trump, but
so I had this conversation with somebody the other day. Each generation has to close out the fight of their time and set up the next fight for the next generations. And it isn't about Trump having the balls to do this. It's is he putting the infrastructure in place so that JD Vance, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, et cetera, have the tools necessary to fight the fight. And all of that's happening, right? All the court stuff's being reset to actual constitutionality so that if they use these authorities and titles and they go to court because that's what some little piece of shit's going to do, it gets smacked down and it gets smacked down fairly quickly. And more than likely, a lot of these cases won't even be heard because the courts have to adhere to constitutionality. So, they're not going to be able to do some fatwa from the bench. So it's not so much about, Trump's generation and the older Xers generation's wars taking requirement is to take World War III off the table and then set up and put in place and back and support the Gen Xers and millennials who are going to have to fight the domestic fight to get rid of, the devil's legions here in the US. We also have to do it in the UK. We might have to go to Europe and do it in Europe, but we really want Europe to handle itself. And Europe has Eastern Europe that went through all this, in its own way, went through all of this. They're struggling it out. Romania just had election overthrown, just somebody in place, Moldova, et cetera. So let's see how Eastern Europe deals with it. But Eastern Europe could quite possibly take care of Europe, just by breaking the European Union up and starving Western Europe of the resources and manpower, et cetera, of Eastern Europe, et cetera, right? And so to your, this isn't a matter, does Trump have the balls to do it? It's does he and his generation have the intelligence wherewithal to take their generation's fight off the table and set the next generations up to fight theirs? And if we look, we are seeing that. Because then it's a question, the real question is, and if you look at this administration across the board, it's a transfer of power from the last silent and the boomers to Xers and millennials. You can just look across the board. Now, there's still some boomers in key places like Basent and others because they're really capable subject matter experts and you really need them there to, do the transition stuff. But if you look at who's going to actually be fighting this fight, which has already started and probably going to go into the mid to the latter part of the next decade, it's all Xers and millennials, and they are being empowered when they're coming under attack, throw them out for this or that. They're getting backed and saying, no, we're keeping them there. Like Cash Patel. I'm not a fan of his, but I don't know him. I think the Valhalla statement was dumb as fuck,
It's
but
so
that's just
fucking
me,
gay. Yeah.
right? Um,
I think he meant well, but it's just gay.
yeah, well, I think he did too. It's just, he's got
Just shut
more
up.
his eyes are more crazy than Sarah Adams, which
Yeah.
is saying a lot. So, but also, that's another thing. People who play those cat and mouse games across period, I've seen it in SF guys that have played other, done other skills work. I've seen it in Intel guys that have done other skills work. At a certain point, they get that crazy look because they've got like six different personalities running based off of what Intel operation they're running here and what over there and all this compartmentalization is I could never do it. I just don't have that wherewithal. Um, I just I've been looked at for that kind of work. I couldn't do it. I can't compartmentalize like that. And you ask me a direct question in some cases. I'm probably going to answer you, right? In some cases. So point being is that uh, to your actual question, all the infrastructure, World War III has been steadily taken off the table. There's a little bit of kerfluffle here and there, but I think it's mostly been taken off the table. Constitutionality in the courts is being restored, and the U.S. military is being told, you swore an oath, you're going to adhere to it, or you're gone. Um, and here's all the titles and authorities and con plans and all this other stuff that you're going to adhere to, and it's all legal. So no bullshit, or you will be gone. Um, we got to look at how many officers and senior enlisted guys were fired in the Civil War and World War II, and there's a lot, right? Even Patton got fired for a while, sidelined, right? Um, but Tulsi Gabbard, Cash Patel, um, JD Vance, Hegseth, even Pam Bondi. People give Pam Bondi a lot of shit, but if you look at what her DOJ is doing in this all-out war to restore constitutionality in the courts, she's kicking ass. The DOJ is kicking ass. And I know everybody wants to get to the Epsteins and all this other kind of bullshit. And, at some point that's important, but you don't take that on until you've got pretty high confidence you're going to win that fight because those people will burn the world to the ground.
Hmm.
They will unleash hell in your streets to protect themselves. So anyways, I think the balls are not necessarily in Trump for the fight ahead. It's in the Xers and the millennials, and they certainly got it, and they're already in the fight.
I have my windows open and it's fucking getting cold and there's nonstop sirens. Tell everybody where to find you. I'll be back in. I have to shut all this
Uh,
shit.
so emburlingame.substack.com, emburlingame on Twitter, a LinkedIn account I rarely use, and then the books are under my name on Amazon. And I have a website actually, emburlingame.com, where you can get signed copies of books. And then we're going to put out some training materials around a modern Knight's Guide book and some other things here soon. Guess it is October, getting cold again. Hopefully we can ski soon.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good, man.
Excuse my rudeness. Um,
Yeah, life is, man. It's a conversation between friends. It's not some fancy, you know?
I agree. Um, yeah, I guess it's more of just kind of like it's kind of wild to actually see it start to play out. Now, I'm very hesitant to be like it's happening because I mean everything's always been happening since forever. But it is interesting to like put that out there to call in all the generals. It is fascinating. It's so, and this is pure speculation. How does it start? If it starts, how does it start? Is it very quiet and behind the scenes, or is it just straight up like bold-faced names just start getting like zip tied by SWAT teams? Not that you have the answer.
Yeah, so as I said previous, generally, given the kind of steps that we've just seen, you you get a whole number of retirements. People are given an option, right? They're given information on their actual malfeasance and maybe even treason, and they're given a choice. And you see a bunch of retirements. You see the attempts by the other side to discredit a whole lot of people, using made up lies, using falsehoods, using accusations, using, disinformation, actual like General Pachepa's book, Disinformation, Real Disinformation. And stirring up the mob, stirring up the crazies to go and kill somebody, etc. Um, that's usually what you see next. Right now it's the whole next level of loyalty test, right? Who's loyal on one side, who's loyal to the mob state, who's loyal to the revolution, because those are two different but related entities, right? The real power is the mob state. The revolutionaries are just useful idiots, but they're in everything. And so, you know, and then on the other side, the loyalty, so they're loyalty testing themselves to see who's really in this, who's going to go the distance, and then sidelining those that aren't or burning some of them. On the responsible side, it's who's loyal to the Constitution, who's loyal to this country, who's loyal to this Constitution. And it really comes down to that, right? Constitutionality. And are we going to, you know, people need to remember that there was 20 some odd years of all this kind of effort that happened before the founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence, which was a declaration of war in the form of a firm commitment. It even says it, right? That they are committing life and fortune, right? The potential of the loss of life and fortune to bring about this thing, right? To stand and fight for this thing, what would become the constitutional um, form of government. Where I don't think we've quite gotten to that declaration signing yet, but we're getting close. So now there's a whole lot of loyalty testing by the responsibles, the constitutionalists, to, all those and all these managerial and leadership, et cetera, positions. But there's also loyalty testing within the mob state and the revolutionaries to see who's willing to go into this next level of blood. And these things can take about a year or so. Now there you can get some extraneous action or some Leroy Jenkins, right?
Yeah.
That does something stupid and throws off the balance and accelerates everything. But normally this next level now of loyalty tests of who's really in signing, right? Loss of life and fortune, that usually takes about a year.
May you live in interesting times, I guess. I mean, I don't, you know, fuck. Um, but yeah, we gotta wrap it for now. I do have
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
meeting in a couple minutes I gotta jump on. But yeah, dude, thanks for doing this spur of the moment. And yeah, as always, everybody go to the description, Twitter, YouTube, Substack, books, blah blah blah. Um, anything else?
No,
All right, dude. Well, hey,
forget my lazy face.
oh man, you're
Yeah.
good. You're good. I appreciate you doing this on short notice. And I'll text you to you when it's up. And yeah, sorry for the unceremonious end. I have to hop it out
Ah, it's all
right now.
good.
All right,
Yeah.
brother.
All
Dude,
right,
thank you
take
so much
care.
for your time. Till next
Yep.
time. Thank you.